The following is a special presentation of the PDF Sports Network.
You know, right. A podcast that uncovers the origin stories of some of the biggest names in sports, media, entrepreneurship, entertainment, and so much more. Nick Durst here, along with Joe Calabrese. And Joe, our guest today, is used to turning out the lights, but on our show, it's all about lights, camera, action.
Love it. Great intro. Yeah, he's a former All-Pro NFL linebacker, Rookie of the Year, no big deal. He's also a huge mixed martial arts enthusiast. He's the founder of the Lights Out brand and now Lights Out Extreme Fighting, which can be seen on Fubo Sports. We're so pumped to have him on. Lights Out is here with us. We welcome to the program Shawne Merriman. Shawne, how you doing today?
What's up, guys? How you doing? That was a hell of an intro just now that you pulled off there. So I gotta use that one day myself.
Yeah, so anybody who's listening, go watch the intro. All right, we turn the lights out for Shawne. But Shawne, thanks for coming on with us. We met you last fall at Grimaldi's in Las Vegas, and Joe's seen you recently. But great story about what's going on right now. We're going to get to Lights Out Extreme Fighting later on. But for you, where it all started here, back in high school, you were a beast in Maryland at athletics. When did you realize maybe you had a chance to potentially go to the NFL? And did you ever consider maybe playing college hoops? I know you were top 5 defender in DC and the Maryland area.
Yeah, man. Funny story is I actually started out playing basketball first, and I kept following out all the basketball games. And my coaches, they said, you know what, we got a sport where this is accepted, and I think you're gonna do extremely well. And so they sent me to the football field. And at the time, I never watched football, barely watched it on TV. I was like 11 years old, I think, and didn't know what to do. And the first day of practice, all my coach did was say, you know what, that guy right there, pointed him out, go hit him, go tackle him. That was it. And that was all I needed. And so yeah, man, I was top 5 in defenders in the county, PG County, Maryland, all state. And I did want to try out for the basketball team in Maryland. Gary Williams and those guys, they wanted me to try out. I was playing all season rec ball with the team. The team went back and told Gary Williams that I can play, and they wanted me to try out. The head coach wasn't about to let it happen. So he told me, look, you're a football player. You're playing with us, and that was it.
So you got recruited by Maryland. You're a DMV guy. That's the dream over there. What other schools were you recruited by? Was there another decision, or was Maryland always going to be the school? And you studied business in Maryland. So what was it like studying business at the school?
Well, it was kind of crazy. So I was recruited by most of the bigger schools in the country. And I grew up in PG County, Maryland, a little bit outside of Washington, D.C. area. And I wanted my friends and family to watch me play. That's really what it came down to. Miami was there, Florida State was there, USC was there, Alabama was there, you name it. And I just chose to go to Maryland because I felt like I wanted to play in my own backyard. I wanted my high school teammates, everybody who kind of watched me come up, I wanted them to be able to come to the games. So that was my decision. But man, let me tell you, I didn't take any visits because I was smart. So I know if I took a visit to Miami, my mind could have changed a little bit in that. But I'm glad that I went to University of Maryland. It'll always be home to me.
How do you think things would have been different for you if you were in this era now with the NIL stuff and people were like, "Hey, come to USC. We'll give you $2 million."
It'd be hard. It'd be hard to turn down that kind of money. But I think ultimately, it was more like a family situation, right? So it wasn't, the money didn't matter as much. I knew that at some point in time after my freshman year that I was going to go be a high draft pick. I remember the first Mel Kiper, top sophomores coming out, about to be juniors. I was listed up there. So I had a pretty good inkling that, I was going to be drafted pretty early in that situation. So the money wouldn't have been as big to me right then because I was only a couple of years away from getting it anyway.
Right.
But I would say this, man, we grew up, very poor. We were homeless multiple times. And so that would have been difficult to turn away that kind of money because I know it would have helped me and my family and people around me a lot. Ultimately, there would have been no way I would have still left Maryland because I knew at some point in time I was going to be drafted early. I was fortunate to have that opportunity to do that.
So what was the whole combine process like? Did you ever get in your head about that, or was it like stress-free for you? And then you got drafted by the Chargers. Did you know going into the draft, like, okay, I'm probably going to go in this range? And do you ever look back and say, you know what, no matter what, you can always say I was drafted ahead of Aaron Rodgers?
Hey, look, the way they had the camera in Aaron Rodgers' face, that the entire draft is the reason why I actually didn't go to the draft when I got invited, because I didn't want to sit there and possibly slip out of the top 15 or top 20. And then back then, remember, each draft pick took about 20 or 30 minutes, right? I mean, it was a long draft process. And so, for me, I knew I was going to be drafted anywhere from 3 to 15. Because that's where my draft grade came back at. And that's the reason why I ended up leaving University of Maryland early, because I knew that draft, that draft scale was there. But look, man, if you drafted in the first round, no matter what, I mean, I'm looking back on it now, and I'm sounding a little bit, ungrateful that you go to the 23rd pick in the first round. You're drafted in the first round. Don't get me wrong, but I always felt that I was somewhere between that 3 and 15 range anyway.
Yeah, for sure. And now the draft, thankfully, is much quicker. It's still really hard to watch, but it used to be like, all right, 20 minutes, the first team's on the clock. Why is it taking 20, 30 minutes? You knew who you're taking. I guess working out but back when you were there, the contracts were different. It wasn't all set like it is today with the CBA.
Oh, it was completely different. Right now there's a sliding scale basically where you picked at. Back then it was more of who your representation was, what team were they negotiating with, because that was going to depend on your contract, what happens. And that number 3 guy is sitting around waiting on the number 2 guy, number 4 guys waiting on number 5. So everybody was waiting to see who was getting what, so they can kind of what we call one up, right? So if a guy got 10 million, you want 11 million, right? The guy got 11 million, you want 13. So it was back then, it was completely different. But I'm glad now it's the way it is, because I believe that some of these guys need to come and prove themselves first, right? They're getting this big boatload of money, didn't do anything on the field just yet. So I'm glad that the rules have kind of changed in how they go about it.
So you go from Maryland, you're at home, you're dormant in Maryland. Probably not the best food options, especially nutrition wise. Now you're in the pros here. You show up for your first, rookie camp, a training camp. What was the food like at the facility? And let us know your routine eating wise on game day.
Well, they still had healthy stuff. I just wasn't eating it. So, when you grew up, Maryland and my family, they're basically from the South, from South Carolina. So they ate all the Southern food, the grease, the salt, the everything else. I think probably my 3rd or 4th year, I got better with my dieting, right? And meal plans and that type of thing. But let me tell you, man, I used to eat Papa John's pizza and eggnog on Christmas, man, like whole, large pieces by myself. Those are good times. But now, man, I take such good care of my body, and I watch what I eat. I watch what I do. I do got a demon inside me with Cinnabon. That's my
so good.
That's my only downfall. I can't fight it. Anytime I see one, I just stop. I don't even fight it anymore. I just pull over and just take that L.
So you won Defensive Rookie of the Year in 2005. Training camp, preseason, early on in the season. When did you start realizing that the pro game was going to come a little bit easy to you, and that you were going to legitimately make such an impactful contribution to the Chargers in your rookie season?
It was actually when I first started full time. I think it was game 6 or 7, somewhere closer to the middle of the season. And once I took over the starting linebacking job from Ben Lieber, who also was a really good player, I knew right then and there they were looking for me to do something additional on that team that wasn't there. To get after the quarterback, those turnovers. Also, too, man, be a spark plug. I was the one breaking the team down, coming out the tunnel last, kind of setting the tone for everybody else. And I think that, that was kind of my job in a way. Very, very few people can do that, because it has to be natural, right? You don't want to be the fake hype guy, the fake rah-rah guy and get everybody going. And you're not like that. And me naturally, I was just that guy. And so people were looking for me to go out and do things. In fact, we had our rookie dinner, and I had to take out all the vets that were 4 years and up. And that bill, let me tell you, was like, $32,000, almost $33,000.
Oh,
But
man.
at the end of that dinner, what was pretty cool was LaDainian Tomlinson stood up on a table and said how much the team was going to need me to come in and play and help them turn things around. And so that was cool. That's when I knew that there was a kind of respect level. I just had to go out and earn it.
So multi-time Pro Bowler, the Pro Bowl, when you were playing, it was kind of competitive. Now it's obviously gone, but how were those trips to Hawaii, and what was the week like in Hawaii leading up to the game?
It was incredible, man. And I just, said we didn't have the money to go to Hawaii growing up. We couldn't imagine going to a place like that. In fact, the first time I even seen palm trees up close is when I went to San Diego. That was like my first time seeing palm trees the way I did. And so, to take my family over, and I took like 10 people over there. I flew my grandmother out, my mom, my sisters, my cousins, my aunts. Everybody came out there because I thought that it was an experience that we wasn't in a position to do growing up. So I took everybody, and I probably set the record for drinking Mai Tais for sure that week. And it was just a good time, man. Seeing all the vets. It was my first time seeing Peyton Manning, kind of chill by the pool and hang with the fellas and kick back. How funny he was, and just it was a really good time, man.
So when I think about the best dynasties that never was, obviously the Bills and you guys, I think you guys had the most talented roster in modern football, I would say. And a lot of times, for some reason, we see Phillip Rivers, he gets a bad rep in the clutch games. I mean, this guy's playing hurt all the time. So for you, when you look back on that time, obviously with him, LT, as you mentioned yourself, and all these stars, how do you remember those times now? And how crushed are you that there's no more football in San Diego?
Well, first and foremost, you're right, man. I was watching NFL films the other day, and they pretty much said that we were the best team of the decade, even though we didn't win a championship. And trust me, that still hurts. I don't care how long you're away from the game, and especially when I go and do these other sports shows, and you got guys there, and they're sitting on there with their rings on, and they talk about championship. You just want to knock them over the head at the desk. So. But it was great times, man. And the further you get away from the game, the more you start appreciating them. Because when you're there, especially when I was drafted at 20 years old, playing at 21, everything's moving so fast, right? And now I look back now when I walked into the locker room with LaDainian Tomlinson, Antonio Gates, Phillip Rivers, Lorenzo O'Neal, Jamal Williams. I mean, Keenan McCardell was at wide receiver. It was loaded. And the teams that we had. And so now I can appreciate it. I got a chance to experience that, but let me tell you that no championship still burns, and of course, man, I miss San Diego will always be home for me. In fact, I'm there like once twice a month. I can't fully leave San Diego because it's the best place to live in the country. But yeah, San Diego will always be home.
So I know you're a fighter at heart. Did you ever consider putting somebody through a table when you were playing in Buffalo during the latter portion of your career? What was it like playing in front of Bill's Mafia?
Oh, it was next level. And in fact, because I didn't want to go there originally, I was scratching and screaming, not because of the city of Buffalo, it's because they, on record-wise, they wasn't a really good team. And so I wanted to go somewhere where I was going to possibly get a chance to win a championship and play on a really good team. But when I got there and I seen, the fans and how they treat you and watching the games, how it would be freezing outside and 12, 20 degrees, whatever it was, and they no shirts and screaming, and we might not have been that great at the time. And so it was an experience that I'm glad that I got an opportunity to see, because we have fans in San Diego, but we also won a lot of games, right? I mean, so it's easy to go and support the team when they're kicking everybody's butt. But it's hard to support when your team is not that good. They just love you to death. In fact, man, they treat you like a second or third cousin in Buffalo. Like, they'll see you on the street. Normally, and when I'm on the West Coast, people ask for pictures and everything else. Out there, man, they kind of throw you the deuces and say, "Hey, what's up, lights?" and keep walking. Like, they knew you for 20 years. So I always thought that was pretty cool.
So you started using the Lights Out moniker. It was your nickname at Frederick Douglass High School. You eventually turned it into a brand and a charity with the Lights On Foundation. So describe that process to us.
Yeah. So, I got the nickname when I knocked out 4 kids in one game my sophomore year in high school at Frederick Douglass High School. And I kind of it took a turn of its own, because when I went to University of Maryland, we started having those bigger games on ESPN and ABC, and we started to really get out there, and that Lights Out name kind of had a national platform. And so I ended up, launching Lights On Foundation, my charity coat drive at the University of Maryland, because as we talked before, man, I was left a couple of times homeless. We lost our house, our place due to fires, and we couldn't afford to go and get another place. And so we slept in cars, we slept in shelters, we slept, churches, you name it. And so for us, it was a tough time. So I figured that I have this name, I got this platform, people are starting to know who I am. And so how can I use that to, bring attention to people who need help? That was the first thing I was thinking. I said, well, people know who I am now. Like, let me see if I can do something to kind of put this thing to use. So my first year at the University of Maryland, I had the Lights On coat drive. I was expecting 100 coats. Like, if I get 100 coats, I'm thinking like that's 100 people that's warm this winter. Man, we got over 3,000 coats the first time out. And that's when I knew, I said, okay, this is important. So I just finished up this last year, my 20th annual winter coat drive at the University of Maryland. And so I still see some of the people when I first started coming back there, and they got kids now, gray hairs. I'm like, man, what? I'm getting old as hell, right? But it was pretty cool. So hopefully I can keep that going, man. And one day my son and my kids, whoever, they'll take that on and continue when I'm not here.
So when would you say that you realize that you got this big platform from playing in the NFL, and you could utilize that for good or for business purposes post-career? Because a lot of players, it seems like that doesn't hit them till after they retire. You seemed very like a forefrontal thinker here, thinking ahead, and you maybe knew ahead of time while you were playing, let me think about the future here. So how'd that process work for you?
Yeah, man, I've always been very proactive, right? To play in the NFL is the biggest platform. You got to be, it's a privilege to play there. It's the biggest sport we got in this country. Everybody's tuning in to the Monday night, Sunday night footballs, now the Thursday night games. I mean, people are watching. And so that's kind of a privilege to be able to do that. So I just started putting things to use, man, and really getting my mindset to what's going to happen to me when I'm done, right? What do I want to be? What do I want to do when I'm done with this game? I wanted to be done with the game, and the game not done with me. And so I started to be very proactive in launching Lights Out Extreme, Lights Out clothing line. I had a bunch of Lights Out brand stuff going. I was selling in a bunch of big retail stores, including stores like Tilly's and DTLR. Was selling, I think, in over 300 stores in the country. And so, I've always kind of been ahead of it. And so obviously playing in the NFL was a priority, but I knew at one day in time, this game was going to be done with me, and I wanted to be done with it first. And that's why I was kind of ahead of the game and getting, the Lights Out brand out there.
So growing up, were you a fan of wrestling? And ultimately, how did you get in contact with WWE to start doing some stuff with them? Because everyone thinks, oh, Pat McAfee, the first guy coming from the NFL to do it big, but you were there a decade before him.
Yeah, it was crazy because Triple H, Paul over there, yeah. They were doing a big event in San Diego, and obviously it's my backyard. I played there, and they wanted me to be a part of a show. And so I came out, I jumped, and I think it was Chavez who I jumped. I hit out with a bamboo stick. The crowd went crazy, did the Lights Out dance. It was super, super cool. Like, everybody was into it. And after that, that's when we started to have conversations that when I retired, that I was going to the WWE. And I started to work with them a lot. I even hosted the WrestleMania that was in New Orleans, which by far, man, was one of the coolest things I've did in my life. And yeah, I've been on a lot of big sports shows, a lot of big national, international things. But let me tell you, man, when you're up there with Mankind and Shawn Michaels and Booker T, and you hear the Rock's music and Hulk Hogan and Undertaker coming out, I mean, it was that inner kid, I don't care who you are, it jumps out. And I'm there and I got my earpieces in and I'm sitting there going through the process. I'm looking at the script and I'm talking. And it took a lot for me to stay in my chair. It took a lot for me on live air to stay in my chair, man. But it was awesome.
Yeah, and like Nick said, Pat McAfee and Rob Gronkowski followed years after the fact. They took your lead. But I know that So we're going to start to talk about the Lights Out Extreme Fighting now. You're a huge fan of mixed martial arts, but you come from a family that has always been into combat sports. Family that comes from a boxing background, and again, eventually you work your way into MMA. So describe what it was like growing up in a family like that, what they did in particular, and when did you start having an eye to the future regarding mixed martial arts and the opportunities that ultimately were presented to you?
Well, growing up in that DMV area, there were a lot of championship boxers that came from that area. And my uncle, who was really good, Henry Buchanan, who was a boxer, a pro boxer. And so you can only imagine those cookouts with me and my family, when people had problems with me and my cousins or somebody else, there were boxing gloves. My grandmother was like, hey, go get the boxing gloves. You guys can go out in the backyard. And so we come, when you come from that boxing family, it's kind of in you to do just in the combat sports in general. Now, when I got drafted by the Chargers in 2005, MMA with the UFC just started to kind of catch fire. It started to come on the scene and be more of a part of the mainstream media. And so I was going to UFC fights, man, since 2005. And I've been around the sport. I got a chance to train with some of the best guys in the world, Randy Couture and Chuck Liddell, Tito Ortiz. I mean, I've been there with Tyron Woodley, you name it, man. I've been there with all these guys, Luke Rockhold. I think I'm going to go probably train with him at some point in time again too. So, just being around these guys for a very long time, man, it grew interest in the sport. I then launched Lights Out Extreme Fighting in 2019. I had a lot of TV experience with production, being an NFL Network, Fox Sports, ESPN. I understood how TV and production works. And I also had a passion for the sport. And I said, hold on, I could do this, So it was, my name and Lights Out was very synonymous with the sport in general. And we are now on Fubo Sports, Fubo TV. We just launched. We just actually crept into the top 5 most watched all time on Fubo Sports. So that kind of stuff for me, man, is pretty cool. We got a lot of cool tech stuff coming. Fan engagement tech, gloves. I mean, just all kind of different verticals. AI. It's about to get pretty crazy, man. So. People that's, waiting for us to give me the next 60, 90 days, things going to look a lot different.
So you're approaching 500,000 total followers on social media, approaching 40 million total impressions, 1 million live streams. You can go to the Fubo Sports YouTube channel and watch prior events, right? So Nick and I were huge, again, wrestling fans, mixed martial arts fans. I love the UFC. We have a podcast here. We have some demo reels. What do you think, Shawne? Do you need commentators, ringside announcers, social media hosts? Any help over there with the brand?
No, dude, we always need help. I mean, seriously, we always need help. I just try to get through my day without ripping my hair out. That's always the key thing. It's so chaotic behind the scenes, and I kind of laugh, and I see why Dana White is bald headed.
Right.
It's pretty chaotic. But the truth of the matter is, I think that just the business of live sports is where it's at right now, period. If you got a good product, people love watching, you got a live sport and company like as we do, a lot of fun activity and a lot of data sharing and just getting information out there to fans. I'm all about, man, just giving fans more, give them as much as we could possibly give them to get them in tune to what we're doing.
How do you go about finding your fighters for these events?
Yeah, so my matchmakers, man, they put a card together, but I just came from Extreme Couture right now. I was training over there, getting some rounds in on the bag, a little cardio session, hitting the mitts, and I have 2 or 3 fighters walk up to me like, "Hey, I'm trying to get on that card. You guys got an August 26th in San Diego," and I said, "Hey, look, we're about a month away. You ready? You got to cut weight. How you feel?" I love being around these guys because it reminds me of the locker room, right? Yeah. There's nothing that can replace the locker room and how the locker room was, because there was a lot of crap talking, guys pushing and shoving, like just playing around. You can't come in there and let your guards down one day because guys will be on you. So I appreciate that, being around that again, because for me, it keeps me young, keeps me disciplined and on my toes. But we have fighters, man, in my DMs on social media. They see we got fights coming up. I mean, you name it. It's pretty incredible.
What would you say is the best city to put on an event for the buzz surrounding it?
Well, Southern California in general, I would say, because there's so many fighters from, LA all the way down OC, Riverside, San Diego. There's so many guys that are looking for opportunities. Everybody's not going to get on the UFC card, right? They just won't. And everybody's not going to get on the PFL card. And so if they're doing is looking for that opportunity, because we are seen and the viewership is so high with Fubo being a partner, like we're shown in, all over the US, Canada, Spain, and France, and so when you got viewership like that, people want to come and throw down. They want an opportunity to be seen.
Absolutely. So, Shawne, what would you say in your life or your career here would be your I'm right moment? What we mean by that is a time or place where you wanted to pursue something, you asked somebody for advice, and they said, Shawne, that's crazy. Like, that's not going to work out. And you're like, you know what? I'm going to do it anyway. And ultimately, you will see why it is that I'm right.
Yeah. I would say, it's funny, right before I launched Lights Out, right after my career, 2018, I started having the conversations to launch Lights Out Extreme Fighting. And when I told people about it, they said, that's crazy. UFC's there, right? Or this promotion, this league is there. And I told them, I'm like, you'll see, right? You'll see that not only we're going to do it, but we're going to make a big splash in this business, in this industry. And I'm always going to bet on myself. I always believe that no matter what, it might take me a little longer or something than I actually wanted to, but it's going to get done, because I always have this saying that you can't win against a person that won't quit, right? So, just if you keep going at it, you keep being persistent enough and consistent, great things are going to happen, because it has to, right? You just won't stop doing it, so you just keep going.
Wise words. Amazing way to end this. Shawne, we thank you for your time. Really appreciate coming on. Last thing for me is, I showed Nick a picture before. I found a picture of me in high school when I had your jersey. Now, unfortunately, I think the jersey is long gone, but it used to be those baby blue jerseys, those Chargers jerseys. Would you consider those like the all-time #1 NFL jerseys? Because everybody had one of those, whether it was you, whether it was Rivers, whether it was LaDainian Tomlinson, everybody seemed to have that jersey.
No question. And to be honest, it's not even close. All right, when we wore those on Monday Night Football, Sunday Night Football, it was a guarantee. In my eyes, it was a guaranteed win. You can't lose in those. Those powder blues, man, were something else, and definitely the hardest uniforms in the NFL right now.
Well said. Well said. Again, we thank you for your time. We appreciate it, Shawne. Everybody, go check out Lights Out Extreme Fighting. Again, all social platforms. Visit the website. You have an event at the Palo, right, in California, August 26th.
Yep, Casino Palma, August 26th.
There you go.
You can get your tickets at lightsoutxf.com. And also, we're giving away tickets if you follow me on social media at Shawne Merriman, at lightsoutxf2. But we'll be live on Fubo Sports. If you guys don't have Fubo, make sure you get it.
All right, there you go, Shawne. Great way to end it here with those last words. We appreciate your time here. And that's going to do it here for this episode of I'm Right. For our very special guest, Shawne Merriman, my co-host, Joe Calabrese, I'm Nick Durst, and this has been I'm Right.